In a little over an hour, the polls will close and the election results will start coming in. And of course, the biggest race that we're following is the one for governor. 2 Democrats and 7 Republican candidates are all hoping to win their party's nomination. Joining me right now to break down what we can expect to see tonight, Republican consultant Mike Hassinger, no stranger to these here parts, and former Democratic State Senator Vincent Fort, no stranger here as well. We're always appreciative to have both of you in the House talking about politics. All right. We take a look first at the Democratic side, and the poll that we have run, Democratic candidates trying to make history here. You're talking about Stacey Abrams, Stacey Evans. Where are we going as far as these numbers, Senator Fort, right now? What's your perception as you take a look at these numbers? And I know you are a supporter. You have come out in favor of Stacey Evans.
Yeah, I think, your numbers show that Stacey Abrams is the favorite. But the thing that stands out to me with these numbers is the high number of undecideds. I think Stacey Abrams may still be the favorite, but at the same time, it's unusual to have that high level of people who haven't made a final decision.
You're talking about 2 very strong Democratic candidates, which is something we did not see in 2010 and 2014 as well. Does that speak well of where Democrats are this time around?
Yeah, I think we're developing a bench. We've got, high grade, high quality candidates, and they've been able to put the money in place to run a very effective campaign.
All right, let's look on the Republican side right now as far as our polls go. It has shown the Lieutenant Governor Cagle well out in front, but there is a lot of folks that are still undecided. Brian Kemp at 17, then Hunter Hill. And, this has been a very organized campaign so far. And from all of these parties, the top 3, we have seen a sort of who is more conservative, a sort of Trump view of where politics is right now in America, at least on the right.
Sure, absolutely. But you're also seeing Cagle out at more than 2-to-1 over his closest competitor. If he can get over 40% in some of the early returns, you might just see him pull this off without a runoff. It'd be tough to do, but it's possible.
There were a lot of people that thought Cagle in 2010 might be the governor. He had the back problems. He opted not to run. But he has been a lion in waiting for a while in terms of organization and in terms of name recognition, not only in Hall County, but all around the state after 12 years as lieutenant governor.
Patience is just as good as luck in politics.
But money doesn't help. It doesn't hurt you either. So will we see any surprises tonight as we wrap this up? Senator Fort?
I'm not sure. I think there may be some surprises in the runoff in July. But I think tonight, other than the governor's race and watching that closely, I don't think there are going to be that many surprises. I think Stacey Evans, with that high number of undecideds, is still in the game, regardless of the fact that Abrams is the favorite.
Any surprises tonight on the Republican side, Mike?
Only if Cagle can pull it off without a runoff. That would be a true surprise. It's a possibility, but it's not. I do think that the margin of victory for Stacey Abrams over Stacey Evans will surprise everybody.
All right, guys, thank you. We appreciate it. You're going to be with us all through the night as you'll sort of pore over these numbers and explain the tea leaves as they come floating by tonight. Thank you very much. All right.